Welcome to Married to History, where we try to be informative, entertaining, and family friendly.
Aloha, I'm Christopher. I have a fancy piece of paper on my wall that says that I know more about history than most people do, and I also have a speech impediment.
You really do, though.
I don't have a speech impediment, no, but sometimes it gets me.
Yes.
Well, I do have that slurping thing that I do.
I don't even notice that.
So I don't notice it either unless I'm listeing to a recording of myself, and then I notice it, and it's like, oh, I'm so self-conscious about
The
it.
thing I notice more than anything is you do that. Both of us do that a lot.
I do?
Like if we're not talking and then we're suddenly going to start talking. Anyways, like that. You do a little click. I do it too.
Now I'm probably going to be self-conscious about that. All right, okay, I'm going to be paying attention to that.
Usually I can edit it out.
Oh, okay. Well, that might explain why I haven't been noticing
Yeah.
it.
I'm Shirley. I'm a homeschool mom that relies on good curriculum, Christopher, and Six the Musical to teach our kids history.
That's a good one for teaching history. I like that musical.
You didn't like it at first.
I didn't like lots of things at first, probably just
to-
because you recommended them.
Yeah, that's how it goes. All right. Well, I have a history question for you today, honey.
I love history questions.
If Lenin was a dictator, then why did the Beatles let him into their band?
My goodness, oh, give me strength.
Why do you act like that? It's a good...
What do you mean, why do I act like that?
I'm asking a genuine question.
This is not a... Oh,
And what was Lenin the dictator of? I thought he was British like the rest of the band. I don't get it.
I hope that Beatles fans around the world show up at our house and stone you. And I don't mean marijuana stone. I mean throw rocks at you.
Uh-huh.
All right. So, John Lennon
Yes.
of the Beatles.
Was not a great guy.
I didn't say he was, but he was a great musician.
True.
Vladimir Lenin from Russia
Mm-hmm.
was not a great musician, at least not to my knowledge. I'm not aware of him playing any music.
Maybe he was.
John Lennon was, all right, I'm going to go with you. I don't know he was lived after the 50s, so I don't really much care about it. So I don't know all the great details of I don't think I know practically anything about his life other than his time with the Beatles and with Yoko Ono and with getting shot.
I just know he was not a great husband or father.
Okay, that's
and then there was that whole thing with Yoko.
That sounds unfortunate. All right, so yes, I know almost nothing about John Lennon. Vladimir Lenin, however, was also not a savory guy.
Okay.
All right, so Vladimir Lenin.
Was he related to Putin? Vladimir Putin.
I have no idea if he has a relation to Putin. I do not know. I have not studied the family tree in that regard. So, yes, Vladimir Lenin was a very unsavory guy. And I have to admit, I don't remember whether or not he could be counted as a dictator. It is undeniable that his successor to power in the Soviet Union, Stalin, was a dictator. But off the top of my head, I cannot say for sure that what Lenin was able to do during his lifetime would quite count as being dictatorial.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't be surprised if he was, but I can't think of anything ironclad right now that yes, he definitely was a dictator. He was definitely in charge.
Okay.
Oh, and I guess if there was nobody questioning him, then okay, that just by that would count as so I was thinking more of okay, what actions did he do? But then,
how do you define dictator?
Well, dictator is the person who is an autocrat, is one person who's in charge. So this is something that gets into bits of icky argument with people from time to time. Okay, an autocrat is what we call it when there is one person in charge.
Okay.
There are different types of autocracy.
A king would be an autocrat.
A king is a type of autocrat, but there are different types of autocracy, and some people more than others argue about the nuance of difference between them.
Okay.
So a king is a monarchy, but a monarchy or a monarch is also an autocrat.
But not necessarily a dictator.
But not necessarily a dictator in some connotations. So I teach this vocabulary because it's in the textbooks and it's on the curriculum, so my students need to be able to know these terms and how to define them. But largely, the only thing that, and this really, the closest I can get is the idea of dictator is somebody that has no limits on their power. A king arguably still has some manner of limit to his power in that in monarchies typically God puts you in that place. A dictator, we don't say God puts you in that place. He's in that place and you can't get rid of him.
I would argue that dictator definitely implies a negative connotation as well.
Dictator,
like,
that would be another
if
one,
you're
yeah.
a benevolent autocrat, you wouldn't be a dictator.
So there's a fair argument for semantics, basically, in that, all right, no matter what you call it, you still got an autocrat. You still got one person who's in charge calling the shots.
Yeah.
Some people who might argue that, oh, no, well, a king or an emperor or a dictator or a supreme leader or a consul general or secretary general all has different connotations. Like, no, that's just a different title, basically, for the same thing, really, because you're still talking about one guy in power. And for some people that might say, but this person or that person has limits to their power. Then I would say, okay, well, then they're not an autocrat. There's some different, so to put it into perspective, the United States is not a democracy. The United States is not a republic. If we were a democracy, that would mean that we as voters have all power. If we were a republic, that would mean that Congress by itself has all power. But we are a constitutional republic. Congress has limits. The Constitution is what is the supreme power in our country. So England, for example, they refer to themselves as a constitutional monarchy because, yes, their monarch doesn't have any power. The Constitution is what has the power in their government.
Right.
So, yes,
sounds complex and nuanced, and I don't care.
Yes, and again, I would say that's why there's this fair argument for semantic, really.
Yeah.
So I could be wrong, but I honestly think that dictator was a new term that either was invented or it became widely used around about the days of Hitler and Stalin to create this new category that we wanted to, because these guys were so bad, so awful.
Yeah.
We need a new word.
It's propaganda.
We can't just go with autocrat anymore.
Right.
So Vladimir Lenin is I believe the founding member of the Bolshevik Party. I might be getting my details wrong here. The Bolsheviks, I believe, were a political party in Russia at the time of the Russian Revolution of 1917, 1918.
Okay.
The Soviet Union, the Soviet was the name that was given to the working class of people. So and I might be getting these two mixed up, it might have been the other way around, but I'm pretty sure the Soviet was the name given to the third class, the lower class, the working class people, and the Bolshevik Party was the leading party, or at least one of the leading parties, eventually the only party of the Soviet.
So it's like the party of the people.
Yeah, so let's say that the United States and Canada were deciding to get together and to join together in one nation. We would have the Canadians and we would have the Americans, and then within the Canadians, they would have various different political parties, and within the United States, we would still have the Democrats and the Republicans and various other political parties.
Okay.
So I believe the Bolsheviks were a political party within the Soviet. Are you looking this up?
Of course I am.
Okay. So Lenin had always been a revolutionary. If I remember correctly, he was educated in Germany, but I might be getting wrong there. At some point before World War I breaks out, I don't remember when, Lenin is put into exile by Tsar Nicholas. Are you going to make me read this?
Well, it says, definition, Bolshevik is a member of a wing of the Russian Social Democratic Workers' Party, led by Vladimir Lenin.
Okay.
So a Bolshevik is a member of the Russian
Of
Social
the political
Democratic
party.
Workers' Party.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I got it right.
Okay, I don't know.
Okay. So anyway, so Lenin is put into exile. I believe he lives in Switzerland. I might be remembering that wrong.
Okay.
But again, so this is all before World War I comes into being. So it's very arguable that if it hadn't been for World War I, that some of these things might have happened anyway. But World War I definitely puts a lot of pieces into perspective and makes this process become really lightning fast. So to talk about how Lenin comes into being, we need to briefly touch on Russia's situation in World War I. Russia is very much an underdog. They are out of date in their industry, they are out of date in their transportation systems, they are out of date in their weapons, and they don't have a lot of the experienced officers, experienced leaders that they need. Russian casualties are horrendous during World War I.
Okay.
German weak divisions, German soldiers that are the out-of-shape guys, the guys wearing glasses and whatnot, are beating and devastating the Russian army on the Eastern Front during World War I.
I wear glasses. You're calling me weak?
You are not the superb soldier candidate.
I'm not the master race.
Okay, we're not going there. No.
Okay, I'll delete that.
Well, you don't have to delete it, but I'm not entertaining that idea.
Okay.
All right. So to try to make things better, Tsar Nicholas decides that, all right, well, I'm going to take command of the army myself. That's worse. Casualties get worse. He's not a military commander. The people like him well enough, but yeah, when he takes over the army, then things get drastically worse. And Russia already has lots of other problems too. The people are hungry. Like I said, they don't have the industry. They don't have the infrastructure. There's a lot of unhappiness in Russia. Nicholas leaving for the front lines in World War I makes things worse because not only is he not helping at the front, he's making the war worse. He leaves his wife behind, who hires this unsavory dude you might have heard of by the name of Rasputin to be the administrator of the empire while she's supposed to be running the show. And he is, so there are lots of stories about him. Without going into all the witchcraft and other stories about him, it is true that he was a very corrupt man and that he put corrupt / incompetent people into positions of power, so things were not getting better.
He was also probably poisoning their young son.
That is one of the many charges against him, yes.
Yeah.
This all boils down to eventually there being a revolution in Russia.
Sorry. I need you to slow down because literally my only basis for knowledge of the history of Russia is the movie Anastasia. And so I'm like trying to take all this
we're not at Anastasia just yet.
I know this, and that's why I have nothing that you're saying is going in.
Everything I talked about before is building up to Anastasia.
Okay, so we're in World War I right now?
We're in World War I right now, yes.
And Tsar Nicholas is still on the throne?
Yes.
And his country is not doing so great?
His country is not doing great, no.
Okay, so Tsar Nicholas is leading the troops.
Yes.
He's not at home on the throne.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
And arguably, this is the only reason why Rasputin comes into any manner of being.
Okay.
Arguably, if he was back at home, Rasputin might have been a blip in history at best.
Okay, so continue. What were you saying?
All right. So all of this unhappiness, all of these problems lead to revolution in Russia. And I want to
World War I.
During World War I, yes.
Okay.
So, and I want to point out the Russian capital at this time is St. Petersburg, not Moscow.
Okay.
So the revolutions finally happen. Eventually, Nicholas is convinced that, all right, this isn't going to work out well for him. So he agrees to abdicate the throne. But as is common in revolutions, the different political parties, the divisions amongst the people, can't quite decide how we're going to work this thing out together, what new kind of government we're going to do, how we're going to run the show or whatnot.
People are real bad at getting along.
In particular, there are two large divisions between what we call the Duma and the Soviet. The Duma are the upper class people that want to...
like nobility?
No, not some. There are probably nobility members in them, but it's like the educated class, the wealthy class, the merchant class, and then the Soviet, which are the working class people.
Okay.
They're often referred to as the white and the red groups. The white being the Duma and the red being the Soviet. That's why the Soviet Union still adopts red as its color.
Wait, why the colors though?
I do not necessarily know what the reason was for choosing those colors.
Okay.
The old answer that I've always gotten was that red because of the blood of the patriots, but I have no idea how honest that is.
Of angry men.
I have no idea how honest that is in this case, and why the Duma chose white. I don't know. That is white throughout history has been a status of virtue and purity and whatnot, so that might have been the reason why they went with white. So anyway, there are at least two different congresses, if you will, established in Russia during this time. Okay. There is the Duma, the White Congress, and there's the Soviet, the Red Congress. And the two of them are still bickering, arguing with each other long after World War I is over. Well, maybe not long after, but still after World War I is over.
Okay.
So the eventual winner is going to be the Soviet under Lenin. Oh, so I kind of got ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Lenin is still in Switzerland in exile when all this begins.
Okay.
When the Germans find out that all of this upheaval is starting to happen in Russia and they want Russia out of the war, they find Lenin, stick him on a train, and send him to Russia to make things worse.
Wait. Okay, sorry. Pause. Where was Lenin?
He was in Switzerland, I believe.
Because he was in exile.
Yes.
Why was he in exile again?
He was in exile because he was a revolutionary.
Okay. I think I passed out during that part. Like, none of what you said about him.
Yeah, he was in exile because he was a revolutionary.
Okay, so he was just a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so German's like, excellent.
Yes, it's like this guy can fan the flames of what's going on bad in Russia.
Okay, I'm with you.
All right, so Lenin gets put on a train, gets over there, and like I said, he's the leader of the Bolshevik party, the leading party in the Soviet. I know I've read this so many times that I've taught this not too long ago also. So I don't remember all the details in the middle of this for a bit. But eventually the Duma, while still in existence and still claiming to be the legitimate government of Russia, they are not the ones really controlling the strings. The Soviets are the ones that take over and are running the show under the control of Lenin, or rather Lenin is the party leader.
But Nicholas is still a king?
Nicholas, at some point around this, I don't remember the dates. He'd already abdicated before this happened. He gets put under house arrest, I believe, by the Soviets. The Duma might have put him under house arrest. And then at some point, I might be getting this wrong. I think that he tries to sneak his family out, or simply a mob breaks into the palace where he's being kept, and he and his family, I don't remember if they're taken to a basement or they hide in the basement, but whoever it is that breaks into the palace, find them, they get put into a basement, either because they were hiding there, that's where they're found, or that's where they're taken, and yeah, the whole royal family is executed.
Now we're to the movie.
Yes, now we're to the movie.
Have you heard there's a rumor in St. Petersburg?
The song in the movie, yes.
Have you heard the rumor? I was asking a question.
Yes, there is the rumor that Anastasia survived. There was a woman, I don't remember when she died, but there was a woman, I think she came about at least sometime in the 50s or 60s, who claimed, to the best of my knowledge, to her dying day, and her husband introduced her as the Empress Anastasia.
Yeah,
it was
all lies. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
None of the children were missing.
Okay, I didn't remember if they'd ever found definitive proof on the matter or not. But yes, I had always believed that no, she was not who she claimed she was. My understanding was always that the entire family had been killed.
I feel like I found out recently, not that it happened recently, but like I was aware recently that it was confirmed that no one was missing, or like all the bodies were recovered. I'm pretty confident that Anastasia did die with the rest.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, the Russian royal family is murdered at that point in time.
Did this all happen once upon a December though?
I do not remember. Like I said, I do not remember the date of when so there's lots of events that go on during this revolution, and I do not remember the chronology of it all. Off the top of my head.
Got it.
So the royal family was killed.
Did Rasputin have a bat friend?
To the best of my knowledge, no. And Rasputin is killed before the royal family is killed. All right.
Okay, so, I'll stop. Go
going
ahead.
Back to Lenin, who you were asking me about.
Sorry.
So one of Lenin's main promises to the people is that once the Bolsheviks take over, once the Soviet takes over, the war will end. He will pull Russia out of the war
revolution.
Then and there. Yeah, he promises the revolution. He promises that we will end the war, we will get Russia out right away.
Okay.
So, and he lives up to that promise. In 1917, near the end of World War I, pretty sure it's 17. I might be getting my years wrong here. He does make a deal. I believe it's called the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, or something like that, where the Soviet and the German Empire make an agreement that, all right, Russia is allowed to leave the war, but they give up a huge chunk of land. Almost everything between Germany, almost all the way up to Moscow, is ceded. Germany's going to get a huge chunk of it. The Austrian Empire is going to get a huge chunk of it. And the Ottoman Empire is even going to get a little chunk of it down towards the Black Sea.
Wait. So this is all still happening during World War I?
Yes, this is all still happening during World War I.
So Lenin agrees to this because, thanks, Germany, for sending me home.
He made a promise. No, he made a promise to the people. We'll get out of the war. This was the way to get out of the war.
Okay, got it.
To the best of my knowledge, he didn't suffer anything terribly punishing as a consequence of giving up all that land, and it helped that they get all that land back at the end of World War I anyway. So,
do you see my confusion?
Yes, because we don't have time to go in depth, really, really in depth on all of these. I would have to do a prepared episode to give you the chronology, the chronological order of it all anyway. So the Soviets are the ones that are not officially, but they're pretty much running the show in Russia at this time. And they cease to be Russia. It is now the USSR, the United Soviet States Republic. With
Lenin at the head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the Tsar Nicholas and his family dead.
Yes, they're gone.
Okay, I'm with you.
So yes, Lenin, I don't remember what Lenin's title is, but he is the leader of the Bolshevik Party, so therefore he's the leader of the Soviet, so therefore he's the leader of the Soviet Union.
Got it.
So for a while after that, so World War One does eventually end. Russia's already out of it. When it does end, after the peace conference, Russia ends up getting back most of that land that it ceded to Germany in the deal.
Gave it to them.
So this is one of the things where I'm curious about, because Russia was not invited to the peace delegation. Most of Europe continued to recognize the Duma, the white government, as the legitimate government of Russia. They refused to recognize the Soviet.
Oh.
If I remember correctly, it's actually after the peace process is over that Germany, of all countries, I think, is the first one to recognize the Soviet Union as the legitimate nation of Russia, or the legitimate government of Russia.
Well, of course Germany would, because that's who they helped put in power.
But I might be getting that deal wrong. Well, no, because Kaiser Wilhelm went about that process. Kaiser Wilhelm is not Kaiser of Germany anymore.
Oh my god!
Germany is not an empire after World War One anymore. So it's the Weimar Republic. Germany becomes an imposed republic because of the peace process after World War One. That I believe they are the first ones to recognize the Soviet Union as the legitimate government of Russia.
Remind me to never ask a question about European history ever again.
European history can get quite convoluted.
There's too much.
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that most people don't think about. Yes,
I'm having Iron Curtain flashbacks. Like that was so painful. There's too much. Okay, go on. So Soviets. Go.
So going back to Lenin, he's in charge. So I do not remember all the details about what specifically happens to him. He dies. I think there are rumors that he's killed, but I don't think those rumors are ever confirmed. I think he does die of natural causes of some kind.
Where's there a rumor in St. Petersburg, though?
I don't know.
Okay. Because
at some point between then and now, the capital does get moved to Moscow. I don't remember when the capital does get moved to Moscow.
Okay.
Lenin is not in charge for all that long, though, because before the 20s come about, I really wish... I don't remember when he died. I want to say 22. Look it up.
I'll look it up. I remember when we talked about Stalin, we talked about Lenin's, like, huge mausoleum that he was, like, laid to rest in, and it was, like, a tourist destination. January 1924.
24, okay. I was a couple of years off. All right. So
he was 53. He fell into a coma.
Okay.
His official cause of death was recorded as an incurable disease of the blood vessels, whatever that means.
That means that they didn't know what it was at the time.
Cool. Okay, so he died, and...
So yes, he dies, and Joseph Stalin will eventually emerge as the leader of the party. And this is how he... So this is going to warrant like a whole... Talking about Stalin could warrant a whole nother episode, so
we did talk about Stalin.
We did talk about Stalin?
Well, we talked a lot about Cold War, so he came up a lot.
Okay, well, we didn't talk about Stalin's rise to power, I'm guessing, in that case.
No. Okay, go for it.
Do you want me... I'm just going to go into how Stalin came
into power. You can't go too deep.
I won't go at what Stalin did afterwards. All right.
No.
So this is how Stalin came into power. Stalin was a nobody. He was a thug. Just a thug. He extorted people. He was a bully. That's really all he was. He did a couple of small things here and there. I think he did a bank robbery once or twice.
For real?
Mugged people occasionally. But he was just a thug. He wasn't party leadership material. But his thug skills, and particularly his... I don't think sadist would be the right word, but darn close to it. That ability was useful to the party, especially during the revolutionary years.
Oh.
The revolution now is over. His skill set, not necessary anymore. Not high in need anymore.
The Soviets are definitely in charge. The rest of the world agrees.
They're slowly consolidating. The Soviets are slowly consolidating the power. The Duma is still around, but it's pretty obvious as time goes by that the Duma has no authority, and the Soviets are the clear winners.
Got it.
So as kind of a throwaway job to kind of like appease him, but also get rid of him at the same time, they do give him a government position, but it's not one of the leadership positions that he wants. They make him, if I remember correctly, something to the effect of Secretary General.
I have no idea what that means. Go ahead.
Well, this is what it is. His job is to, he's the one who's supposed to make appointments. Take meeting notes.
He's a secretary.
Things of that nature. Yeah, he's basically a glorified secretary.
Okay.
Secretary with a title. But Stalin does something very, very clever. He realizes that as secretary, he gets to do the invoices and whatnot, which means that if there's going to be a meeting, an important meeting, he's the one that sends out the invitations. He's the one that determines who goes to this meeting.
Oh.
And he can make sure that it is people that he can manipulate, or people that owe him favors, or people that he can control.
No.
And he uses this position as secretary, getting to decide who goes to what meetings, who didn't get their invitation, and thus proves that, oh, they're not loyal to the party because they didn't show up at this meeting. He uses that to manipulate his way to the top.
That's so smart.
Yes.
Okay, so he's doing this job while Lenin is still alive?
Lenin is still in charge at the time, and after Lenin passes away,
Okay.
I don't remember all the finer details between that moment where he passes away and Stalin actually becoming the undisputed boss, but that is how Stalin goes from being a nobody that arguably should have been forgotten after the revolution, or maybe had a paragraph in a history book after the revolution, to being the Secretary General of the Soviet Union.
And Lenin,
unless I'm mistaken, that's what he continues to call himself throughout his entire time. He calls himself the Secretary General. Look that up, because now I'm doubting that. Pretty sure he calls himself the Secretary General or something like that throughout the whole time.
And so Lenin and none of the other, like, high-up party leaders were wise to this underhanded Stalin?
There were people that were wise to it and tried to stop him, but he had, because of his position and because of his bullying capability, he had more power or more intimidation than they did.
Did he bust some kneecaps?
I don't know about kneecaps per se, but yes, there were definitely threats and intimidations, if not actual murders or actual maimings of people. I dare say that his greatest political rival or nemesis was a man by the name of Trotsky, and so there was
I've heard that name. Was he a writer or something?
I think so.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. He was a rival. Go ahead.
I'm not. There might have been two guys named Trotsky, and I might be getting them mixed up now, but because I want to say it was Leon Trotsky. There was a political rivalry between the two of them. Trotsky knows that Stalin is, if I remember correctly, Trotsky knows that Stalin is a bad dude. Stalin knows that Trotsky is a good dude and a threat to his power. Because while Stalin is definitely a guy who wants power, Stalin is not loyal to the Marxist-Leninist cause. Stalin is a guy who sees an opportunity for himself to take power.
Okay.
Trotsky, I believe, is a dedicated a communist Marxist guy. So yeah, there's that rivalry between them, and Stalin does eventually get the upper hand in this case, and Trotsky goes into exile. Oh. And I know that Stalin, or at least there's rumors that Stalin has the secret police go out and try to find him, try to kill him on a number of occasions, but I think Stalin gets lucky and Trotsky actually does die of natural causes not too long afterwards. But I'm not sure, because now we're getting into stuff that I know I've read about, but it's been so long and there's so many details in it all, and it's all jumbling together in my head.
Right. Okay, I you're gonna have to look it up later to see what he called himself. I'm not finding it in a quick Google search.
Okay. Right, so that is who Vladimir Lenin is. He is the leader, arguably the greatest hero, the ultimate ended up governor, the winner in the Russian Revolution, who will be the leader of the Communist Party, the leader of the Soviet Union, and yeah, he is the father, or I shouldn't say the father. He is the father of Leninism, I guess you could say. So he was a Marxist. He was following Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto.
Did you say Colin Marx?
I should have said Carl. If I did say Colin, no, it's Karl Marx.
Like Colin.
So Marx is the one who came up with the idea of communism, or at least Marx is the one who published something to make communism, the idea of communism, be known.
Yeah.
I want to say that he got a lot of his ideas from something else, and they weren't all original, but I could be wrong about that.
Doesn't matter.
Lenin is the one who brought it to the world stage.
Put it into practice.
Yeah, that actually tried to put it into practice. And even then, I want to be clear, nobody has done it the way that Marx said. There were a lot of details, a lot of rules, conditions that Marx put into the Communist Manifesto that said, all right, if we're going to create a communist state, these things need to be done. Nobody, and I mean nobody, that has claimed to be communist has actually followed his instructions. They have all tried to skip steps and or just ignore sections of it and try to get to the end instead of doing all the steps necessary. And in so doing, whether on purpose or as a consequence of, have never actually created a communist state, have always ended up creating dictatorial states.
Oh, so you're in favor of true Marxism. Awesome. Good to know.
I did not say that. I did not say that at all. What I said was that no attempt at actually establishing communism or socialism, of which I am aware, has ever actually been successful.
Okay, cool.
Which is why I laugh whenever some people today say that, oh, even some people who recognize that it's never been done successfully, like when you point to them that, okay, you realize that everything that you think is good about socialism or communism has never worked, then the classic argument that one gets is like, oh, well, okay, well, so the others, they didn't do it right, but we're going to do it right this time. I'm thinking, you realize that's what all of the others said. It's like, oh, they're going to do it right this time.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure that our politicians today, while trying to solve many of the problems that we've been trying to solve for who knows how long, I'm sure all of them, every day when they get into the congressional chamber to vote on something, every day they tell themselves, oh, today we're going to get it right.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that seems like human nature.
Yes.
The pride and all that.
Yes. Oh, I know I'm guilty of that too. Whenever I'm trying to teach my students something that I know I've struggled with or that they've struggled with in the past, I think to myself, today my students are going to learn this.
Right.
I'm going to teach them how to carry that one.
Spoiler alert, they don't.
Most of my students know how to carry the one.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's pretty great then. Then you are a good teacher.
I am a good teacher.
All right. Well, Lenin has nothing to do with the Beatles then?
No, Lenin has nothing to do with the Beatles, not to my knowledge. I have no idea if John Lennon has any relation to Vladimir Lenin.
I really doubt it. The last name is spelled differently.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be that in itself isn't necessary because plenty of people from one country have changed their names or the spelling of their names or the pronunciation of their names.
True.
And it's entirely possible that at some point in time, members of Lenin's family, also exiled from Russia either before the revolution or maybe even after the revolution, would have found their way to Britain, of all places, to settle down.
I guess anything is possible. But he's not the same person.
Yes, they are not the same people.
All right.
They have definitely both had a profound influence on the world. Just one for musical and the other for political. One has I think a good reputation around the world no matter where you go. The other has a good reputation in some parts of the world and an evil reputation in other parts of the world.
True.
Actually, I suppose that could be the same of both of them. I don't know. Maybe the Beatles aren't as beloved as I assume they are.
I think generally they are, but there's always a chance that there's some corner of the globe that think that he's the devil. Anything's possible. All right, well, thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, then please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to hear a future episode with more information about today's topic, contact us on Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Married to History Pod.
Also, please contact us if you have a silly question idea, or if there's something from history that you would love to learn about.
Just be sure to specify in your message if it's silly or serious, because we don't want to treat a genuine quest for knowledge as a joke. I don't want to laugh at you if you don't know the difference between John Lennon and Vladimir Lenin. Oh, okay, I take it back. I do want to laugh at you if you don't know the difference between those two, but I shouldn't laugh at fools.
Talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye. Aloha, I'm Christopher, and I still have a fancy piece of paper over my wall that said... Over my wall? Let me try that again. With my weight in wildcats, with my weight in wildcats. Why do I have to wait?
It closed.
I thought you had a history question for me. So apparently you didn't have it.
The window closed.
You were reading it off of a script.
The window closed.
I wonder how much easier my job would be if I could just read everything off of a script.
Yeah. One might say a lesson plan is a script.
People who do their lesson plans wrong, or I should say boring, is a script. Good lesson plan has plenty of room for improvisation when the questions come that are surely going to be something you couldn't be prepared for, like our show is.
Hey, honey, I have a history question for you.
Didn't I say this already? I love history questions.
I wanted to make sure I had a good take. So let's do it again.
You were going to risk deleting all the previous stuff? This is radio gold, woman!
I'm not sure everyone would agree. But let's do it again so I have a really good, clean take, okay?
Fine.
Hey, honey, I have a history question for you today.
I love history questions.
Don't sound like it. If Lenin...
I love history questions!
Okay, you blew out the speakers.
How many times are you going to make me do this?
It's okay, I can fix that.